All right, guys. Thank you for sticking around. How'd you guys enjoy that food? Was it good? You guys gonna check out Brasa, the Peruvian health superfood? How'd you guys enjoy the mocktails? I hear some of y'all feeling real litty right now. All right, so thank you guys for sticking around. We're now going to start the second portion of tonight's event, which is going to be a panel discussion. So we are going to talk about mental health. I just want to call out, no one here is a mental health professional, but we're going to share our perspectives. We're also going to talk about money. We're going to talk about real estate, and we're going to talk about relationships. Ooh. Can I get a ooh from you guys? Can I get a ooh? Ooh. All right, let's get this started here. All right, so guys, you already know who I am. You already know who Nswani is. So I have a couple of amazing panelists here with me. So for my panelists, in addition to stating your name and what you do for a living, I'm gonna throw in a little twist. And as you guys have seen, I like to come in pretty quick and hard with it. Pause, that sounded kind of weird. But June, you don't have to laugh so hard, my guy. So in addition to stating your name and what you do for a living, what you specialize in, I would like for it if you could share a challenge that you overcame, what that challenge is or was, how you overcame it, and what you learned from it in under 2 minutes, please. Delisha, you look ready.
I was like, why you starting?
So we're gonna start with Delisha first. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So I am Delicia Graham. I call myself an investment girly. So I have been in the investment industry for the last 22 years. I'm gonna get right to my challenge because I only got 2 minutes. I think my biggest challenge that I've had is within a short amount of time, I had a lot of family loss. My father was my best friend. He died. Literally 3 years later, my mom had cancer 3 times, and then she passed away. During that time, I also left an extensively long relationship. I was in that relationship for about 16 years, left that relationship. But all during that time, I still had a really strenuous job because being in investments, being a Black woman, nobody gives a crap. I'm in a very pale male-dominated industry. And so when you're running a portfolio, when you're responsible for the investments of clients, when you're responsible for that strategy, you still got to show up to work every day, put a smile on your face, and act like everything's fine. Mm. So for me, during that time, it was a struggle for my mental health. I always tell people, like, as an investment advisor at the time or when you're responsible for someone's money, you sometimes know more that's happening in their life than their spouse. You know more that's happening with them than their doctor. And so that also, it can be an emotional toll. And so during that time, I definitely had to protect my mental health. I started going to therapy on a weekly basis. I started carving out time that it was like, hey, this is my couch time. I would literally have it on my calendar, couch time. And so just making sure that I was checking in with me and taking time for myself. So that's my 2 minutes.
Please give her a round of applause for her sharing that. This is about uncomfortable truths, y'all. We're going there. We're going to have these conversations. Joe, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Jolie Williams, and I am a real estate agent. So I've had a few challenges, but I'll start with one that kind of defined the path that I'm on now. When I was on my 16th birthday, I was actually kicked out of my home. So I had to grow up really, really quickly and figure things out. I went from being very sheltered to now all of a sudden being essentially a 16-year-old woman. That involved me with going to school in the morning, high school in the morning, and then working at Tim Hortons in the afternoons. Then taking the bus from Meadowville Town Center essentially to here, Ontario every single day. I refer to that because that was a defining moment for me that let me know that I have the capability to do whatever I need to do. It started my work ethic that I have now. I'm an individual that hustles and will go to being solution-based. So with that happening, I got into management and retail really quickly, and eventually through bartending, I've had many different pivots throughout my life, but my most important accomplishment to me is as a person who was kicked out very early and had to rent from very early on, is becoming a homeowner last year.
Round of applause to that.
Yeah. So, I purchased this property pre-construction before I was a realtor, actually, under the guise of doing it as an assignment. But that was another challenge, and I overcame that and became a homeowner. So that's me in 2 minutes.
Thank you, Joe. Well done.
Oh, it's my turn. Hello. My name is Solange Davis Ramlo Chan. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. And just charged with the crime, hit my line. But I think something in terms of a challenge that I can speak to and just overcoming hurdles. The other day, recently, I was reflecting just from a place of gratitude. And I was just very happy with the fact that I'm finally in a place where I'm happy with what I'm doing. I feel confident when I step into a courtroom. I'm making money, I'm happy with where I am. And then just reflecting on the fact that it took me quite a bit of hurdles to get here. Like I grew up in low-income housing, AP, PO, if anybody knows that neighborhood. And it was never meant for me to be here. That was it. I think there were a lot of people and obstacles in my way that could have pointed me in another direction, but instead I overcame a number of things, including where I came from, but also not having mentors. You're applying to law school and you're the only person that looks like you that's looking into what an LSAT is and what the application process is like. And then when you're, looking to work at a law firm, you're seeking help from lawyers that don't look like you either, right? So those are just a lot of things that I overcame, and recently I was reflecting on that. And so, yeah.
Everybody clap around, please. Mr. Yacht.
Hello, Mike Yad. Nice to meet everyone. I'm a real estate broker. I work in Toronto. A little bit about challenges. I think what will probably be helpful is to share something more recent rather than go in, talking about something 5-10 years ago. I think it'll probably be more relatable to the individuals here. But I think my biggest challenge came probably 2 to 3 years ago. 2 years ago, actually. So I was in a hospital. My second son was about to be born, and I was on the phone with my lawyer, and we were discussing what all my options were on the table. And at the time, I owed three different. I was a major pre-construction investor. I owed 3 developers over $500,000, and I also knew that there were parties that I needed to pursue that owed me quite a large sum of money as well. And going through all of this while at the hospital, while my wife is having a C-section, and I'm discussing what are my options. My first option was, I said, well, I'm going to file for bankruptcy because it's not worth the risk. But the challenge of that path was most of my dealings were with other partners, so that would reflect poorly on them. So if I didn't solve this problem, it was going to affect my brother, it was going to affect my dad, it was going to affect my wife as well, because our names were all tied into all these separate dealings. The long story of it is my lawyer said, look, it's raining on everybody. It's not raining just on you. Obviously, we know the last 5 years, rates were low, then it went up. A lot of people with leverage, a lot of people with exposures that were maybe very leveraged into the market. So I got caught up in that perfect storm because that cycle will never, ever repeat itself. But long story short, I spoke to some good friends, some peers of mine, and I kind of heard what they were going through, and I said, oh, okay, you're going through a lot worse than whatever I'm going through. And I mean, we always feel better when someone else is doing worse than us. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. So, and then a good friend of mine recommended a book for me called The Obstacle Is the Way, and that became my mantra for like 2 months. And I got to work, found ways to solve that problem. That probably wasn't 2 minutes, but thank you for allowing me to share.
No worries. Give Mike a round of applause, please. I don't want to just let everyone else do theirs. I don't want to be selfish like that. So mine's really quick. It's actually tied to my podcast. So the background is I went to school in New York City, and I was living my dream. I was 24, 25 years old, working on Wall Street. Ironically enough, I worked in the Trump building, actually met Donald Trump way before he was what he is now. Tall guy, by the way, 6'4", very friendly. and I was doing pretty well for myself. And then I had some personal challenges that brought me back home to Toronto, and I went from pretty much having a view of the Empire State Building, making good money, living that Wall Street life, all that stuff, to in my mom's basement apartment on a couch, being like, WTF. I had no criminal record. I had no baby mama drama. I used to pray to God and be like, yo, why am I here? What did I do wrong? I did all the right steps, graduated with 3.2 GPA, all that good stuff, did all the internships. And I was on my mom's couch, and I had 6 months left of saving, and I ran out, and I was broke as hell. Like, seriously broke. Went from call center jobs to doing odd jobs here and there. And it took me a while to get my footing back. In fact, I'll be very transparent with you guys. I didn't start having real success until I was in my mid-30s, and I just turned 40 6 months ago. So I consider myself a late bloomer. So I decided to start the podcast because I knew that I couldn't have been the only one that's ever felt like this. So I started to have a podcast, a conversation about failure, because I want to know how other people dealt with failure, because failure is something we all deal with on one level or another. So that's my story. We good with that? Okay. We going there. So mental health. So this is open to the panel here, no specific person in mind. What boundaries do you guys put in place to both protect and restore your mental health? Anyone wants to go first? Like a routine or anything you guys do?
I'll go. I'll take that one. So for me, I protect my mornings. I have a very strict morning routine. I did try the 5 a.m. thing. Not for me. I'm a 7 a.m.er. That's fine. I wake up in the morning. I start by reading my Bible. I write in my journal. And then on my way to the gym, I listen to affirmations every single morning. And my goal is to not look on social media until all that's done. Am I successful every single day? No. But I am successful on it at least 90% of the time. So that's how I protect my mental health.
Thank you, John. Anybody else?
Yeah, if you look in my schedule, every single day at 4 o'clock, I nap. And I nap for either 15 minutes or 30 minutes, never anything less, anything more. What that does for me, I wake up early. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. It just gives me a goalpost to say, if I can just get to this point in the day, I get a little break, like a halftime, right? And I always make a joke that I'm a business owner during the day, then I have a second job at night, which is being a parent and a husband. If I can just get to that 3:30, 4 o'clock, I fall flat asleep, 15, 30 minutes, wake up again, I'm ready to go for a few more hours. But it's that thought that there is a designated schedule break coming that is very, very helpful for my mental health.
Anybody else?
So for me, I do mine not necessarily on a daily, but when I start my year, I put in all of my time off that I want for that year. Whether I know where I'm going or not, it don't matter. I just know, okay, every 2 months I have to have time off. And that either looks like 4 days, 5 days, or whatnot. And it is I have a huge calendar that sits on my wall, and my days off are in orange. So everything else, I don't know what's happening around it. But I know every 2 months I'm taking 4 to 5 days off, and I ain't going to work, and I ain't looking at emails, I'm not looking at anything. And so for that gives me mental peace. I'm like, I just got to make it to that. I just got to make it to that. And then y'all know I do couch time. So I'm a huge believer every Friday at 4 o'clock, my laptop closes. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm out at 4 o'clock, and then I have couch time. And I would say the last thing I do is when I'm asked, to do things or whatnot, I start from a place of no. I used to be, and I didn't realize I was a people pleaser. One of my girlfriends, she was just like, she just said it one day. She's like, "You're very much a people pleaser," and I was like, "Oh." But it took somebody telling me that, because I didn't realize that, and I was like, "Ooh, thank you for clocking that. Let me change that ASAP." And so now I start from a place of no. Like, my family knows, or friends know, they call me to do something and be like, no, and they have to get me to a maybe, get me to a yes, because I look at it this way: every time I say yes to something, that means I'm saying no to myself. And so I start from a place of no, because I'm saying yes to myself, and then you got to tell me why I need to be there. Not for tonight, because in Swanee, this is my guy. I
She said
love
yes.
him to death. But yeah, so I started putting myself first, and that helped with the mental health for sure.
I love that. I need to incorporate that. I say yes way too much.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. For me, I would say going to the gym. I have a personal trainer that I work with. I built a relationship with her over maybe the last like 2 years, from before I had my daughter to after I've had her. Initially, I was going to like classes with her 3 days a week, and then after I had a daughter, it just became a lot more convenient for me to go and do one-on-one classes with her. So I've been doing that for the past 2 years, and I found it very beneficial to me because it's like when the world's going in all different directions, it's the one thing that you can kind of have control of, right? And so that has been something that I found a lot of purpose in and has been really beneficial to my mental health. Another thing I would say is like just music. I really like music. So
Spotify playlist.
yeah, I have a Spotify playlist. I also have an Apple Music playlist
Whoa.
going. I have curated playlists. So like when I'm going to trial, I have like a court playlist. When I'm working, I have a work playlist. Like I have different types of I got a little bit of Styles P, a little bit of Dipset, a little bit. Honestly,
You know what era she's
I have some
from?
Vibes Cartel. I have a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I find like when I wake up in the morning, like I'm a 4 a.m.er because I go to sleep when my daughter goes to sleep, right? So I get up really early, and then that's when I'm able to get like a bunch of work done. I curate my music and I tap into a bunch of things where I'm not being bothered by a bunch of, a number of people about all kinds of tasks that I have to do throughout the day. So for me, I would say like getting up early in the morning, just listening to my music and getting into a groove and a good work routine before the world starts has also been, in a way, it sounds crazy on the outside, but it's like beneficial to me and my mental health. Yeah.
I second that. The music playlist, if you guys don't have one, like that's life changing in the gym as well. All right. My next question is for the ladies on the panel. So the Black Superwoman complex or strong Black woman schema, does that still exist in 2025? And if so, and if it still does exist in 2025, do you see the strong Black woman label as a badge of honor that empowers you, or do you see it as a harmful stereotype that forces Black women to suffer in silence? What are your thoughts? Who wants to go first?
I'll start off. Does it still exist? I think so. Do you have to subscribe to it? No. There was a coworker I had years ago, probably 15 years ago, and he was like, "Oh, Delicia," I forgot how we were talking. And for the record, I don't have kids, by choice. And there's a reason. There's a reason why I'm saying that. And he was like, "Oh, when I'm taking my nephew to Disneyland, and I always tell him like Disneyland's so big, but if you get lost, go find a Black woman, because a Black woman will help you, and they'll help you get to where you need to go." In that moment, I was like, "Well, if they come to me, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with a kid." But at the same time, it also gave me a perspective of how the world views Black women. And while I do believe in a higher power, I am not here to save everybody. And so that's why I go back to yes, I do think that still exists, but it depends on when you want to subscribe to it. Because that can also be very draining, especially in certain workplaces. You are expected to operate in a certain manner because you're carrying everyone. You're not just representing yourself, you're representing every Black person behind you. You're there to help everybody get where they need to go. And so for me, yes, I'm here to help people, but at the same time, I got to help myself first. I love being a strong woman. I love being my melanated skin, but my melanated skin, I will not allow other people to use that against me to kill me and put me in the ground faster.
I don't know how I'm going to add to that. But the truth is, for me, I agree wholly. I remember one time someone said, "Oh, Julie, you've been through so much. You're so strong." And in that moment, I just felt sick to my stomach. I just couldn't shake the feeling that it makes people think that I don't need help, that I don't need to rest, that I don't need them to see me and see my vulnerability, which I do, Yes, I'm resilient, which I'm okay with that description. I'm able to overcome, but it doesn't mean that's what I want my life to be. I don't want my life to be hard. I want it to be soft. I want to be relaxed. I want to look in my future child's face and say, "We're good." So I don't prescribe to it as well. And I think it definitely has a negative connotation, especially how Black women are perceived in the workplace as well, the expectation of us in the world because we're so strong. It goes into the medical fields as well because we're so strong. We're not feeling the pain. We don't feel the pain the same way others feel the pain, but we do. So I definitely think it has a negative connotation to today.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right, this one's for the full panel. Work-life balance, is this a myth? Is it possible to be both ambitious and be mom and dad of the year or partner of the year? In other words, is it possible to have it all and do it all?
So the mic, do you want to go first?
Sure. So the question is it a myth? My answer is it's bullshit.
So work-life balance is bullshit.
And here's why I say that. I think there's a season for everything. So you have to kind of know what your seasons are in your business and your personal life. When you have a child for the first time, is there work-life balance? There's chaos. All there is chaos for at least 2 to 3 years. And then through that chaos, you have to kind of rebuild your entire structure and framework because now there's a dependent that's in your life. So if I use that example, or if you really want to get good at something, there's no balance in the beginning. So I'm not saying that you won't eventually get to balance. I'm saying when you start off something and you want to really excel at it, there is no balance. You have to really dive 100% and more because there's external factors working against you. The weather sucks, your partner is going to do something shady, the government is going to change a rule, and then now the goalpost has been moved. But if you've been operating from a place of balance, then you become a victim to when circumstances happen. But so I'm a believer when you start something, your goal is to go all in the beginning and then have breaks in between, that makes sense for you. And if you're married and you have a partner, bring them into that discussion. That's very, very important because they didn't sign up for that, right? So you have to bring them into the discussion to let them know. And then at the end of it, maybe you guys get to go on a trip. At the end of it, then we'll get to go and do this. So I find that is more helpful when I talk to individuals about the myth of work-life balance. You can eventually get there, but you'll be unbalanced in the beginning of it.
I love that.
I think with anything that you want to be truly successful in, just kind of building off of Mike here, it's going to require a lot of effort, right? And because of that, there's going to be sacrifice. So for instance, me having a daughter, like when I'm in the middle of a jury trial and I'm going day and night, working on this case when I get home, I'm going to the office early in the morning, I have to work with my support network, including her dad, to make sure that he's there to, kind of give me that support and also be there for her. So in a way, it's almost like I feel like I'm neglecting my daughter at times because I'm putting all this effort into, doing really well in my job, right? But then, on the flip side of that, it is all for her in the long run, right? And, you hope that with time, she'll realize that as well, right? So I think, especially, I'm in a place where initially I was in criminal defense. And then when I got pregnant, I transitioned to real estate law because I thought that would give me better work-life balance. But I hated it. It was like watching paint dry. It was so boring, right? So, I went back to criminal defense. So now I'm at that place where like, I am really like, kind of relearning everything, and every case is brand new. The rules of evidence are constantly shifting. So I'm having to pour a lot of time and energy into that so that I can be great, right? And so because of that, things are gonna, sometimes get neglected, or maybe I may not be able to go to the gym like 3 days a week, or, I might not be able to pick my daughter up every day from daycare, but maybe I can at least drop her off in the morning. But, finding that balance, what it might look like to you is gonna be different. But I think ultimately, if your goal is to accomplish certain things and you're getting there and you have a support network and, my daughter's not dying, she's okay, right? It's worth it, right?
All right. Oh, this one's good. I like this one. Is lending money to family and friends? I already see how the room feels about that. So many to throw. No, it's all good. Listen, I put these questions into ChatGPT and I asked it what's going to get me the most response. So it's proving me right. Yeah. So is lending money to family and friends an act of love and support, or is it a guaranteed way to ruin relationships and invite entitlement? And so the question is, in addition, is what are your rules around lending money?
I'll start with that. That's an interesting one because obviously money means different things to all people, but mostly emotional responses, right? My rule is this. Sometimes you hear people say self-made, I came from nothing, and we all have a story of independent sacrifice and struggle, but none of us got to anywhere without someone's help. So I look and I think, okay, what can I give without giving back? You might ask me for $10,000. That might not be able to be done, but maybe I can give you $1,000. And if I get it back, great. If I don't, that's cool. So I always think about if I give it and never give it back, will this relationship still be okay? Will we still be good? It may not be everything you're looking for, but it has to help somewhat. And if I think about what I've been given, either directly in funds or through a place to stay or a vehicle to use, or here's an opportunity, here's a plug to a business contact, what would that be worth? Easily 7, 8, 9 figures, right? So I have to always switch my brain to think and say, how did I get to where I am? I'm not gonna put myself out of pocket, but I can always do a little bit more.
I'm looking at the money expert over here.
Do none of that.
So I have a few thoughts. One, current state, I don't give more than I need back. Meaning that if I give you $500, I'm not looking for it back. But I also let you know you can't come back. So there's a boundary there. I'm a firm believer that everybody got the same 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And so, especially coming from a Caribbean family, I'm originally from the Bahamas. My parents are very clear that I was a whoopsie baby. And so they were like, you are taking our pension. Therefore, you are the pension. And so I knew that my success meant that my parents were also successful. That meant that I was also taking care of my parents. And so I knew that going into it. But that also meant that a lot of millennials, I'm probably aging myself, we're the sandwich community, meaning that we also have children, but then we're also taking care of our aging parents. Now, I don't regret a day in my life that I made the sacrifices, the financial sacrifices to take care of my parents, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be able to be in the spaces that I'm in if it were not for the sacrifices of which they made. So I made a kind of a conscious decision, like, this is carved out for them. Now, everybody else that I know, I will help you, but if you help yourself. And so I make it where if you come to me, I will make sure that you're good. I will help you as much as I can afford to, not lose. Because again, I'm an investment girl. I need my return on investment. So if I'm giving you $500, okay, I'll take that hit. But that means I'm investing in you. I'm not going to call it a loan, but I'm investing in you. But that also means you need to take that $500 and flip it into something else. And if you come back, then you're telling me that you were not a good investment. And I don't make bad investments.
Jeez. Well, damn. Damn. Well, damn.
Well, that's a very good question, Corey. And I think there's an exception to every rule. So even though I do have a hard rule, I don't lend books because I'm not a library, and I don't lend money because I'm not a bank. Banks are in the business of lending money. So, but like I said, there's exceptions to every rule. I had a friend of mine who, very proud. Parents are in private equity, and one day, maybe 2 years ago, reached out to me, and this is at a time when I'm going through my stuff, as I mentioned, and he asked me for $5,000, and I said to myself, this guy doesn't usually ask for money. There must be something going on for him, and I also didn't have it to give, but I said the fact that he's that proud and he reached out to me to lend him that amount of money he must really be going through something. So I lent it to him. He paid it back, not on time, of course, but it eventually came back. So like I said, there's an exception to every rule, and even on my hard rules, like I'll still treat things on a case-to-case basis.
Yeah, I respect that. I think yeah, go ahead, please.
Sorry, one last thing. I don't think there's an issue with also giving money, but I also want to do it in a legal, tax efficient way. And so what I mean by that is when I look at my non-melanated counterparts, a lot of times they will set up trust, they will set up charitable foundations to be able to funnel the money and be able to take care of their parents, their families. And so I think also with all of us, we all are giving back to our families in some way or another. And it doesn't take a lot of money to start any one of these accounts that I'm talking about. And so I would say if we're in positions where we are supporting family members because of whatever case, like just think of your other options that it could be financially savvy for you to be able to do that.
I love that. Clap it up. I love the wisdom going around here. So there's a common theme that came up a couple of times. We talked about, supporting our elders. So there's this phraseology in our community called the black tax. And I don't even think it's exclusive to the black community, but has anybody ever heard that phrase before, the black tax? No, anybody ever heard of that, black tax? Right, so for the folks that don't know, that's when people of our age category have to use part of the money that we make or earn right now, because most of us are in our earning prime or close to it. We are now supporting our moms, our grandparents, our fathers. So we're supporting the older generation instead of using that money to invest or save. So my question is to the panel here is the black tax a necessary act of generational uplift, or is it a financial trap that keeps us back from building true wealth? What are your thoughts?
My mom's in the room, right?
Son, you better be careful now. No babysitting for you.
That is a great question. I think it's one that needs to be talked about more. I can definitely understand. First of all, the black tax is being handled by my big brother right there. My brother is the patriarch of the family. He takes care of everybody. And, without him, we would be nowhere. So that's my big brother right there. And I understand that because in my household, we're doing the same thing for my wife's family. And sometimes you literally say, oh, man, I got to put some dollars here. Maybe you see some opportunity for yourself to invest, but you have to keep a little back just in case someone gets sick or they need some help or downsizing a home. But I also have to think and look at it like we're not that far in the game based on where we've come from with some of the trauma that we experienced either through slavery or colonialism, right? Like my parents came over here in the 70s. My mother moved to Sudbury from Guyana. Sudbury, right? Sudbury. Like think about the snow we have right now. Sudbury. They thought snow was make-believe. They didn't come with coats, right? And my mom worked her butt off. And I grew up in Rexdale. I went to school in some very challenging areas. I hung out in some very challenging areas. But my mom and dad made sure we had a house. And they bought that house. And I knew very early on the understanding ownership. And even though we were in some areas where weren't always the best, we always laid our head in a slightly nicer area. And that meant a lot to me and my brother. Had direct relationship on how we grew up and the things we valued. But that wasn't that long ago. So to assume that my mom and my dad are good, we're not there just yet. And I think if we just change our mentality, sometimes when you travel the world and you go to places like Europe and you see the kids living in the same home with mom and dad, or you go to the Far East and you see them honoring their elders and taking care of them, not in a burden, but in a privilege and a right, that's just fortifying the next generation. And I think as Black people, especially Black people in Canada, we're still finding our identity. We're still trying to figure out what is our way of growing and becoming a little more impactful in this economy. I don't think it's running out of house too fast. My nephew's right here, so don't listen to this part. But I don't think it's necessarily running out of the house too fast either, which is the bottom end, right? Sometimes we have to leave based on circumstances. But what if we just nurtured above and below a little bit more? Even if that meant a little discomfort, maybe mom lives in the basement apartment, or the kids stay around a little longer. But what would that do to the next generation, next generation, next generation? And then maybe we get to the point where the black tax isn't even a thing. So that's just my thoughts.
Love that. Anybody else want to add to that?
I'll take a little stab at it. I think I've never heard the term black tax until it was mentioned here, but I kind of understand the mentality also in terms of why that is, and I think in terms of in the black community, money goes up instead of it going down, right? It should be going down to your kids and your grandchildren. I heard inheritance is actually not for your children; it's for your grandchildren. How many of us, when we build and we talk about legacy and all this stuff, how many of us are thinking past what our needs are, let alone what your kids need and what your kids' need, right? So I think another thing in terms of wealth, I think a lot of people, I didn't learn what the formula for wealth was until like the last 5 years. I've been operating on half the formula, and the formula is capital times time times rate of return. That's what I thought was the formula for wealth, but I forgot about taxes and inflation, right? A lot of us don't factor the entire picture. So when you look at everything, if your goal is to build wealth, know that it's my mindset in terms of wealth building. It's not necessarily something that I'll see in my lifetime, but it's supposed to be a seed that is planted, and that seed can grow. And like any seed, it takes time. It takes watering. It takes nurturing. It takes the right environment. And wealth, I kind of see it in the same way. And I think once our community learns more in terms of, the gentleman mentioned insurance. How many people, you don't have to put your hands up, but how many people here have life insurance? How long have you had life insurance, right? And that's a, wealth strategy that a lot of wealthy people use that our community, I'm hoping, we're a lot further ahead with that than when I started life insurance when I was, 2006. First time I heard it, I said, this makes sense. I'm not going to benefit from this, but it's going to be beneficial for somebody else down the road. At least, they can pay for my funeral costs, worst case.
Yeah, love that. All right, let's switch it up a little bit and talk about real estate. So I remember like 10, 15 years ago, everyone was like, gotta get in real estate, gotta get in real estate. And then I heard a stat recently that said in the last 10 to 15 years in Toronto is the most amount of millionaires that were ever made in the city, and it was made through real estate. And it's like everybody named Mom was in real estate. It was kind of annoying. So, but let's talk about it. So I'm gonna direct this question to both Mike and Jolie, being the real estate experts in the room. What are some of the challenges that Black millennials face when trying to either enter the real estate market, and what are some strategies that you guys have found to be successful in overcoming those obstacles? So specific challenges that a Black millennial will face either trying to lease a condo or trying to own a home.
You want to say?
Yeah, so no problem. So I think it's multi-layered. So if we're starting off with renting, we face a lot of discrimination just based off of our color, obviously. And I find a lot of the times the people that are mostly homeowners are people that don't look like us. So they want to rent to people who look like them. Now, is it against the law? Yes, but there's no way to prove that. So we find a lot of times we're applying, your profile could look great, you could have great credit, you could have the income, but for some strange reason, you're not getting into any rental properties that are your choice, a nice condo. Now, how do you combat that? It goes back to what's been pointed out throughout this conversation here with setting ourselves up with homeownership. Now, how do we get into homeownership? It's a lot of times I find in other communities, they are getting help from their parents, they're getting that down payment, and we are at a disadvantage in that way. So right now, I think the most important thing for us is getting that financial literacy and making sure that we are getting ourselves into positions of powers through our workplace, so we can now lift another person into that room, so now that they can have that income, that we can have the conversations about how are you building up your credit, how are you building up your income, and how are you building up that deposit. There's other options like joint ventures. For example, if you and your partner, a friend, you both want to get into homeownership, you venture in together and purchase that way. It's finding other solutions, as well as opening up the right bank accounts, getting life insurance so that your next person in your family can leverage that into homeownership. Things like that, we need to essentially start from the ground up now that we have the information out there. How do we build as a community and supporting one another?
Thank you. Mr. Yacht.
I think the challenges in the rental market are very real, especially for us as a community. And the challenges are very real because we don't own enough of the real estate. I think Corey and I, we've had conversations in the past where, I was having a conversation with Corey and I was seeing, where does all my money go? Like, how many black people does my money go to? Everyone has, their barber, person who does their hair, but then, like, let's go deeper. Where does your dollar go? So, and I started doing a checklist. At the time, my rent went to a black landlord who was my dad. It went to, I had a black dry cleaner where I came from today. Took me an hour to get to, but it's also knowing that if you're going to support black businesses, it's going to be very, very it's going to cost you more in the beginning, just because we're not concentrated in one place. Like if you look at other communities, if I go to Bathurst and Shepherd, I know there's a big concentration of Filipinos and Jews there, right? If I go to Willowdale area, Bayview and Finch, there's a big concentration of Persians and Koreans, so it's easy for you to put your dollar in your community when you guys are all concentrated together. Unfortunately for us, we're all over the place, right? We're all over Durham, Peel, Halton, Toronto, and all the different pockets. So it costs more to be able to do so. In terms of rentals are very, very challenging. I mean, I have tenants. I don't even necessarily work with tenants just because it's a lot of work. But when I do have, help someone out, they usually have 6 to 12 months up front, and it's still challenging. Okay, so that's how challenging it is to penetrate. But a lot of it is because we're not the landlords. When we have more black landlords, it's not going to be as challenging. So the home ownership push for us as a as a real estate broker and being in this business is to create more black landlords, create more black ownership, because that's going to solve a lot of the problems, at least on the financial side. The other challenge that exists, that was mentioned, exists in all the other communities as well, which is the down payment needed to get started on homeownership. That's really the major challenge for most individuals. Other communities, their parents, are able to help out, to support, to refinance. I was very fortunate. My mom was in Nigeria maybe 15 years ago on business. My mom's a real estate lawyer, by the way. So she was in Nigeria on business, and I convinced my dad to take equity out of his house and then we bought a whole bunch of pre-construction in the city of Toronto. When she came back, she was so upset because she knew it had to be my idea, because she said, there's no way my dad would have had this idea to do this and go that wild. And I'm glad that I was able to at least convince my dad to start on that path, because my brothers would not be in a position to be homeowners today if it wasn't for that, bold move and just having an understanding and a belief that, through real estate is what's going to give us wealth creation and ultimately freedom. I'm not saying it's the best vehicle or the easiest vehicle or the least capital intensive, but it's definitely the one over the long term that is the most proven.
No, I love that. But I do want to challenge something you said, though. Because you said just because, well, logically, it is correct. The more black landlords you have, the easier it would be for black people to rent or lease. But haven't you found that once black people, I'm just going to be really cheeky with it, get uppity, right? They move up the economic ladder. They still employ that same mindset that, the other folks had towards us. So is it just as simple as getting more black landlords into the marketplace, though?
I think it's a good start. It's not going to solve all the problems. I mean, look, I was looking at rental applications because I manage for a lot of investors, and I was looking at rental applications for maybe 3 different properties. I looked at maybe 8 to 12 applications, and 80% of it had fraud in it. So there's what do you call it? There's a fear from the landlord perspective in terms of the type of tenants that they want in their homes and in their properties. So for a lot of times, what shows up as racism, but it's also part of it is they just know what they're dealing with. You know, like I was talking to a Korean woman and she said, I'll never rent a Chinese. And I said, oh, okay. Tell me more. And she said, well, they cook with oil. I said, who cooks with oil? And I said, all right, okay, that's different. And then I had an African friend of mine said he wouldn't rent to a certain group of Caribbean people.
You know who that is.
Probably a lot of them in this room. So I'm not going to say, you know, but there's a comfort when someone looks like you, talks, you know, there's just one less thing you have to kind of explain and so forth. But, you know, from a landlord perspective, there is a lot of fraud in the city. And so the due diligence and then also the laws don't help the landlords as well. So because the laws don't help the landlord and you can sit in someone's place. I actually have 2 criminals right now, and I'm saying that they're criminals because I caught them. All their documents were fraudulent. They even got verified on Google. Like it's next level. That if they don't leave by Tuesday, like I have to get York Regional Police involved, right? But not black people. not black people. So I think a lot of it just really has to do with, part of it also is the layout of the land here. But I believe once we start with more black landlords, I mean, I had black landlords for my first 10 years as a renter, from guys like Jude Botchway, you know, and individuals that were in our circle. I would just call them up to say, hey, what do you have available? I have this. Okay, perfect. You know, I'm coming in. You know, I'm moving in 2 months. You know, here's your first and last month. When you have that kind of access, then, you know, the road and the path is definitely a lot simpler. It's a good start at least.
I love that. Give it a clap for Mike. Jude Botchway. Building homes in Ghana, by the way, this guy. Okay, last question on real estate here is buying a home still worth it in 2025? I mean, when we consider the cost of home ownership, down payment, maintenance, property taxes, is owning a home still one of the best opportunities to create wealth in the GTA?
I think a question for that is what's a better option? But what I will say is, if you have $15,000 to $20,000, I would invest in myself first. You know, when I had about $5,000, $10,000, I wasn't thinking about home ownership. I was thinking about how do I add more value, build more skills, get more training, so I could not have to. So that way I can do this a lot simpler, right? So, and part of it in our community also is, you know, we have a lot of pride. You know, we want to say I own, because owning real estate is like a badge of
Honor, for sure.
Badge of honor. You know, I'm top dog, but I mean, real estate can kill you if you it really can. You know, I've seen people die in the last 5 years just because their leverage is just so heavy. You know, I know people with 10, 20, $50 million in leverage. You know, when that thing all crumbles down, it's not a pretty picture. But I mean, I started invested in Bitcoin like in 2017. You know, I made 100% return of my money in like 3 months, and then I got scared and I got out. You know, I said, there's nothing that's supposed to make this kind of return on the planet Earth. So are there better opportunities? Yes. What's your comfort and risk tolerance level? That's where you sit with a financial planner to kind of see, you know, where do you fall in? Are you risk adverse? You know, there was like the word risk didn't exist in my mind before I had kids, right? Now that I have kids, man, I've had to completely adjust, you know, what I do. I say no a lot more, you know, before I say yes. I do extra due diligence, but I still think it's getting rich slow, but it's better than never getting rich at all.
Love that. Love that. All right, now for the spicy stuff. We got the education out of the way. Let's talk about relationships, y'all. Y'all had a good Valentine's Day? No? Y'all don't believe in that scam? No? buy flowers and all that stuff? All right. Okay. My love is every day. I like that. I got a question for the audience though, for real. So, I got a question for the audience. I really want to know this though. How do you guys define dating? Like, what is like? Because I found like that term is so elusive. Is dating like? Does that mean like you're literally just going on dates with somebody, or does that mean like this person is my boyfriend or girlfriend? Like, what does dating mean to y'all? Who's brave enough to answer that for me? I see somebody pointing at somebody back there.
I know you want to answer.
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at the young ones. Go ahead. Stand up. Hey, come up to the mic right here. Come up real quick. Let's give this brother a round of applause. The grown folks are too scared.
Hello.
Okay, come right in. Right in the center, brother.
So, in my opinion, I feel like there's like different stages to like when it comes to like dating and stuff. There's the talking through the phone where you're getting to know each other, but I feel like once you get past that stage and it's like you start hanging out together, not necessarily even going on dates and stuff, I feel like that's what it's considered dating and stuff.
I like.
Wait, so not going on dates you consider dating?
Yeah, I feel like even if you're like, yeah,
In
like,
addition to.
yeah.
So you are taking girls on dates.
Huh?
Yeah. Run for your life, brother. Right. That's what your future looks like. Enjoy this time in your life where everyone is confused.
He just learned a valuable lesson.
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to get old, man. That's what this look like. All right.
What did that?
Okay, so this question is open to the full panel here is, okay, let's talk about social media. What are some ways that social media has influenced our perceptions of beauty and relationships? And overall, do you see social media as a tool for empowerment, or do you see it as a comparison trap? Anyone?
Let's go ahead and take this on. I'm married. This year will be my 10th year.
Congratulations, clap it up.
I forgot to tell my wife about tonight. So if you see her, let her. We were at a barbecue. No, but I would say with social media, it can be very useful because you get insights from different sources, other couples. There's lots of relationship accounts out there as well. But it also brings more things into your sphere that you normally wouldn't see. Like, everybody's human. Everyone has temptation. You take away the phones a couple years back and you're walking around going about your business. You may see someone, you smile. It's a brief moment, you move on, right? When something's in your face all the time, it becomes so much harder. And there's also this idea of dissatisfaction. I mean, at the end of the day, social media used to be a sharing tool. Now it's a sales tool. And how do you sell things to people? You constantly make them feel what they have is not enough. And what social media does is it's not just in paid ads and very overt ways. It's just like it's the ways like you see a couple in a relationship and they're giving some advice, but you look behind, their house is perfect. They got 3 kids running around. How does their house look like that? Right? Now my wife comes over and she's just angry. What are you angry at? She doesn't even know, right? And it's those things that you really have to take space and time away from the platforms. I actually, before I get on, I pray and just say, if I'm going on here for entertainment purposes, let me have a strong mind. Let me not get too either lustful. The Explorer page is crazy, like I told you earlier. But also not to be just too envious of what I see as I'm building my own thing, right? Whether it's my relationship, my business, my body. And I think we really have to look at that because it went from a tool that was supposed to be entertaining and edifying, and it's just a massive sales tool. So this is stuff that me and my wife talk about. We'll go a couple of weeks where we put the phones down. Earlier this year, we tried the Grayscale Challenge where we put the phone, like the actual hardware of the phone, on black and white. And if you do that, you'll scroll for a bit and it just doesn't hit the same. So you're likely to put it down a little less. When I went back and looked at my usage, it was down about 25%. And but it's also just making sure you have time like to connect, right? Yeah, that's just my take.
Yeah, I think so. The comparison trap thing was real for me. I remember many years ago when I was kind of in a slump in my life, in my career, I used to like not scroll because looking at other people's success used to just piss me off. I'd be like, I know this guy. He's not that smart. How is he doing this? Like literally. I'm not talking about you, Mike. I'm talking about you. This guy. I'm no, but for real, like all jokes aside, there was a point in my life where I did not scroll. I used to get on the app. If you happen to be that one person that pops up right when you open up the app, that's the only way I saw you. Because that was my way of protecting my mind, because based on where I was at mentally, that would disrupt my peace. And even to this day, even though I'm not disturbed by other people's success, I still don't scroll like that. The other thing that I noticed is this past summer when I turned 40, I took like a solo retreat. I took a trip to Costa Rica. Right? I even forgot where I went. Costa Rica for 4 days. I basically trapped myself in a cabin in the middle of the jungle. Like, you ever seen like Jurassic Park? Like, I was like iguanas outside, large spider webs, all of that. And there was very limited internet. I cut off myself from the outside world. You know what I discovered? 24 hours is a lot of fucking time. When you're not on this thing, like for real, you don't realize how much time you have when you cut yourself out from like the outside world. So it is a hard thing to do because it's become kind of a necessary tool, especially if you're trying to do more entrepreneurial like things. But like if you can find a way, a scheme to kind of balance your time on social media, very, very, very beneficial. Anyone want to add anything
Since
to that?
we didn't touch on the relationship part of social media, I'm surprised as a man. Essentially, I
Shots
would
fired.
feel that it's not a shot. I feel like it's probably more challenging for men to date nowadays because I know maybe it's my algorithm, but my algorithm essentially talking about $200 dates and Valentine's Day. I need balloons everywhere. I want flowers all over the floor. I want 100 long stem roses. I want the forever roses. Notice that I know all the names of all the things because that's my algorithm, right? Going to Blue Blood, $600 dates. What's a $200 date, right? It's just, what you see on social media, you only see the perfection. You only see the over the top because that's what gets pushed to us. You don't get to see the small, intimate dinners that are intentional. You see over the top, I'm taking them on a private jet for our first date. That is not regular day-to-day life, So I know it's been challenging for men to date, but...
And not challenging for women and then the expectations?
Sure. I think women do have unrealistic expectations. God.
Give her a clap for taking accountability, y'all. That's very hard for women to do.
Not me though, but
First step.
yeah, I think that when I see the hot takes on Instagram, sometimes I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. But the reality is social media is a selling tool, and the second thing that they want to do is invoke emotions. And when you invoke negative emotions and debates, then you get more engagement. I don't think that a lot of these women are actually living the lives that they display.
Facts.
I think a lot of people on social media are not living the lives they display. And that's just the reality of social media, right? So you have to kind of, I think, remain grounded and remind yourself of that every time you log into Instagram and you find yourself on the Explore page, because people are really just putting their best selves out there. They're not putting their hardships and the times they've had an emotional breakdown or when they're struggling financially. They're not going to broadcast that to the world, right? So when you are logging onto social media, as long as you remind yourself of that, I think it kind of allows you to keep in touch with reality, and then you can do things to like manage, so I turn off my notifications. I don't get a notification every time somebody sends me like a message or something like that. Also, when I'm in work mode, I put my phone on DND, so I'm not even getting any phone calls or anything like that, right? But I think you just have to remind yourself that like social media is not real, but also it can be a tool that you can use to your advantage. So like I use it to market my business, and I've actually gotten a number of clients off of social media. So like if you can maintain a sense of reality and also use it strategically, it can actually be a tool and it can be beneficial to you as well.
Absolutely. I love that. Okay. I like this one. I'm going to direct this one towards Mike and then Swanee, the men, and then I'm going to open it up to the women. How do you approach setting boundaries in your personal and professional relationships? And what strategies have you found to be effective in maintaining healthy boundaries while also fostering strong connections? So let me contextualize this for you and Swanee. He's one of the top personal trainers, run one of the best gyms in the city. A lot of his clients are very, very attractive. Very, very attractive. Never noticed. So here's a scenario I'm going to paint for you. You got the hottest influencer in the city of Toronto, plus million followers. She wants to be trained by you, and she's smoking. She's top notch. And you know by working with this young lady, it's going to have a 10x result on your business. But your wife, Erin, love you, beautiful, is uncomfortable. How do you approach that and handle that situation?
That's a very good question, Corey. Well, the first thing I would just figure out is like why? Why me? Why does that person want to work with me? And why not one of my other talented coworkers that work in my gym, right? If that's something that aligns well with my skill set and there's a business opportunity for me, then I'd ask why Erin is uncomfortable. And usually, my wife's a lawyer. She's a very practical thinker. She's a very smart businesswoman. We can usually navigate those type of scenarios. But if she's uncomfortable, it's easy. That's business. This is home, right? I got to come home every night. I got to sleep in the bed with my wife. And the one thing I never want to have happen in my profession, whether it's with my wife, and especially with my kids, I don't want my clients singing my praises of what a great person I am and how much I've made a positive impact on their life. And the people around me is like, who are you talking about? That guy? That guy's horrible to me. So I always have to keep their needs in as priority. And, if it's something that is going to get me in trouble or make her feel uncomfortable, that's an easy answer for me. At the same time, too, in this business, especially in the business of fitness and health, when you're straight, it's not very long before people start to realize I need to be straight, too. And far too many young men, especially black men in this business, were part personal trainer, part club promoter, part dating your client. It's like, come on, bro. This is Toronto. This is the most beautiful women in the city in the world are in this city. Go somewhere else. Look somewhere else. And I remember when I started my career, I started off in a club where that wasn't the culture. It was very much like she's my client, girlfriend, trainer. Like it was too much blurring of lines, and nobody made no money. So I'm like, why am I working so hard to not make money? I don't need to come to work to find a date. I could date to date, right? And if you kind of hold that now, for me, it's been 15 years, I don't attract the client that doesn't actually want to work and make results. They're trying to ting, they try with someone else.
Love that. Wrap it up. Mr. Yacht, flip the scenario. Okay. Real estate. You get the top real estate broker wants to work with you. She's smoking. She could add 10x to your business. But your wife, your beautiful wife, hey Maya, is like, Mike, I'm uncomfortable with this.
Well, I mean, she wouldn't be uncomfortable with it.
Let's just say she was.
She knows we're going to get to the bag. But anyways, so if she's uncomfortable with it, how would I manage it? I would have a conversation with her. My wife and I communicate really well. There were things that even when we started dating that I would speak kind of out of line, but really more so just being naive. And we would always talk through it. So we talked through quite a bit. In terms of how I would navigate it is I would bring it to the meeting with me, or I'll do the meeting in a place where it's glass settings all around me, which I've done before, is, meet really attractive females in very public settings where it's like, okay, because she'll get a message from a random person when I'm with a client anyways, because like we said, Toronto's very small. Say, I just saw Mike but if she already knows I'm meeting with this person, that she's unbothered by it. So I think, as long as your intentions are the intentions, and also you can let the client know. I will let the client know, hey, you know what, my partner feels uncomfortable, my wife feels uncomfortable about this meeting. Can we not meet around dinner time? Can we meet for a coffee instead? so we can keep it short, practical, and so there'll be compromises in that regard. But for the most part, I think also she has me on. She's tracking my location 24/7, so she knows where I'm at all the time. But also, that it's not something that I was opposed to, because there was a point where I was like, why do you need to be nowhere everywhere that I'm at? Like, that's kind of weird. But then later on I was like, okay, well, in case of an emergency, we do have kids, and just having her know where I'm at all times, as long as, and we both use that respectfully. Like, I can pull up and see where she is right now as well. So I think, yeah, exactly. So and my wife is very, like, she has emergency bags for Armageddon ready, like that she's already, that you can order from Amazon. It's like $100 and it's got everything in there. So she's that person where she's just over prepared, and that's the person that took me because I'm not like that, but I had to understand that these are the things that she needs to feel comfortable and secured. So it's important for me to make that compromise in that area.
Love that. Before we wrap this up, ladies, anything to add to that one? Are you leaving that alone? We good? The fellas did? No, hold on. Thank you. So, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming out, participating. Round of applause for that. So, I've also been working on a little project of mine. It's a little baby project of mine. I've been working on, anyone ever familiar with those like dating conversation card games? Anyone put your hands up? Have you played that? Has it been working out for you guys? Yeah? That's how you found your wife. Hey, Stan, that's what's up. Brittany, holla. So I created one. It's called 3 Questions after my podcast, but except it's not for dating purposes. It's for conversations with yourself. So here's what I discovered when I was in the middle of the jungle in Costa Rica, all by myself with my thoughts. I realized that no one is going to talk you into or out of more things than yourself. So if you don't learn to have proper and healthy, constructive conversations with yourself, you're going to cheat yourself out of opportunities. For example, for the fellas in the room, be honest with me. Have you ever seen a girl that you wanted to talk to and then you just kind of shied away for it for some reason? Has that ever happened to you? Or you shoot your shot 100% of the time, right? Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being honest. Some guys are like, I don't miss. Right? Or for some of the corporate people in the room, like, have you ever been in a meeting and you had an idea, you had a thought, but for some reason you didn't raise your hand, and then someone else next to you said what you were thinking, and everyone's like, that's a great idea, let's do it. You're just like, fuck, I was thinking that, right? So I created this game called 3 Questions. Basically, you pull 3 cards from the deck, and you ask yourself 3 questions every day, and it's designed to help you to build healthy conversations with yourself, so you cheat yourself less out of opportunities every single day. So the way that we're gonna end this conversation here is I'm gonna pull 1 card from the deck, and y'all are gonna answer it. I don't know what's on top, honestly. So we're gonna find out. No, that's the instructions. All right. Should have organized that. No, I don't like that. It's boring. Okay. This is a fun one. It's a light. I wanted it to be controversial, but oh well. Okay, so the panel, last question for everyone to answer. What activity makes you feel good?
Dancing.
Dancing.
I love to dance. And it actually took me a long time to realize that. In the last 3 years, I just really realized no matter what, like, the dancing makes my troubles go away. I love to dance. All the dancing. It's actually on my vision board of how to learn to kizomba and salsa. So that's on my list for this year.
Got you. What's next?
And not because Nswani is here, I've actually been much more focused on my fitness this year. So I work with one of his personal trainers, but I also have been into my hot yoga.
I love it.
They toast the room. It's dark, but it's 90 minutes of just really great yoga. So
Got
that's
it.
been my activity.
Music, pretending like I'm a DJ, picking tracks, acting like I'm spinning. I don't know how to spin, but I'm like, I'm hitting the next song on Spotify, thinking like I'm cutting up, but I love it.
For myself, I would say anything physical activities, riding, playing soccer, golfing. I have a goal to be a scratch golfer in the next 2 years, and it's gonna happen.
That's awesome. For me, it's working out and listening to music. And just so you know, the logic behind that question is we all go through rough periods and moments throughout your day. So it's helping you, reminding you what activity makes me feel good so that when you're in that point of your day that you're not feeling good, you can go to that activity. Guys, thank you for coming out. Feel free to network and shake some hands. And peace and love to the next time.